everyone. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Dr. Jason Uchida. I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine and your host of this program about naturopathic medicine. Welcome to Island Wellness, a program designed to educate you about naturopathic medicine. I graduated from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland, Oregon in 1988. I've been practicing naturopathic medicine in Hawaii for the past 19 years. Naturopathic physicians are trained in the state of Hawaii and licensed in the state of Hawaii as primary care providers, just like medical doctors. Let me give you a brief introduction to naturopathic medicine. Naturopathic medicine is a primary healthcare system founded on the honored universal principle that nature is the ultimate healer. Its roots go back beyond the time of Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine. Naturopathic medicine's core belief is that our body has the innate ability to maintain and restore optimum health, no matter what the current status may be. Therefore, a physician's true role is to support this process by using modalities of treatment that work in harmony with the body's natural healing ability. Well, that's enough about me and naturopathic medicine. Now let's find out if it works. To help illustrate this, I will bring in a patient to share their experience with naturopathic medicine with you. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great Sunday. My name is Dr. Jason Uchida. I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine and your host of this program on alternative medicine. Welcome to the May 19th, 2009 edition of Wellness in the New Millennium. Thank you for joining me. Tonight we have a very special program lined up for you, and it's one that you don't want to miss. By popular demand, my patient Jim returns to share his story of the gruesome and deforming injury he suffered to his shoulder. He'll explain exactly how it looked, the comical recommendations that 2 orthopedic specialists gave him, then what we did to help his body heal itself perfectly without surgery. In a few minutes, Jim and how his body healed a mangled shoulder all by itself perfectly. For those of you who want to watch my patients Doug, Milton, Jason, Mose, Jim and I on Olelo TV, we are on channels 49 and 52 at various times. On May 31st, you can watch Doug and Mose on channel 49 at 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. Then on June 2nd, you can watch Doug on channel 49 at 6 o'clock p.m. Then on June 3rd, you can watch Mose on channel 49 at 8 o'clock in the evening. You can also view Olelo television programs on my website, www.drjasonuchida.com, and hit the video link. Next week is a program that you don't want to miss. Just so you know that Jim's experience wasn't a fluke, my patient Eric will be joining us to share his story of how he injured his shoulder in a soccer accident and how the outer tip of his collarbone was sticking up like a flagpole, and what we did to help his body heal his shoulder all by itself without surgery. Next week, Eric and the amazing healing ability of the human body. Jim, welcome to Island Wellness and Wellness in the New Millennium.
Thank you, Jason. Jason, always good to see you again.
Always good to see you. It's been a long time.
It has been. Too long.
Jim, you first appeared on Wellness in the New Millennium in January of 2004. How have you been doing these last 5 years?
Fantastic. You know, I said in that program that I had no pain. It's as if the injury had never happened. And as the years go on, that's the case, you know, and I think I mentioned in the original show too that I had surgery on my right shoulder in high school, and that just when you have a surgery like that or a major injury, it just never seems to go away. I mean, to this day, there's lingering after effects on the right shoulder that had surgery. It was a rotator cuff injury. And I'm constantly having to kind of stretch it, and it creaks, and you know. The left, it's honestly as if nothing ever happened.
All right, so just we're jumping a little bit ahead.
Yeah, I'm jumping ahead, but
but great story. You don't want to leave. Let me give you some relevant background on Jim before we start, because this means a little something. Jim played college football at the University of Memphis. At that time, Memphis, I don't know if they still do, but at that time, Memphis regularly played football teams from the Southeastern Conference. Teams like University of Tennessee, University of Alabama, Florida State, LSU, and Ole Miss, to name a few of the names. Jim played fullback. he blocked and carried the football a lot against these big guys. So Jim's a big guy, and he's pretty tough, right? Playing football against SEC teams. So Jim's no wallflower. Jim, would you you injured your left shoulder in 1991. Please tell us that gruesome story of how you injured your shoulder.
Yes, I was playing Ultimate. Ultimate is a frisbee game, what we call a disc. And it's a sport that combines football and soccer, and it's a lot of fun. There's a great Hawaii league for that, and I'd been playing this on a regular basis for about 3 years. And Friday afternoons, evenings was one of our regular gigs. And we had played a really hard game. It was kind of toward the end of it. I was running full speed to try to block a pass, and running full speed, I dove out completely horizontal. We call it going ho. And I'm an aggressive player, so I don't mind hitting the ground and flying out there. And it's a non-contact sport, except for occasional the ground.
Hitting the ground.
And so I got awkward on this block, and the years of playing football, you learn how to fall and roll, and I just got into an awkward position and rolled to where my left shoulder was the first thing to hit the ground, and it was at full speed. The left shoulder just hit and stuck and just crumpled underneath me, and just like under my ribs, while the rest of my body
kept going. So it was like your shoulder was the anchor.
Dropped anchor.
and your shoulder stopped, but your body kept going, and you ripped all the ligaments in that left shoulder.
Like a plow. I used to think of it like a plow, but the plow got stuck, and the rest of the body just kept going.
For the TV audience, you were basically diving with your right arm out.
Right.
Yeah, and your left shoulder closest to the ground.
Right, and instead of diving with both, I guess my left arm was trailing, the right's out, and I rotated clockwise. And so I was sideways at the time my shoulder hit, and running full speed, I don't know what that is, 20
miles an hour or so. Yeah.
Or so.
Yeah.
And the left just.
Yeah, and you can see, Jim's a pretty big guy. He's not a thin, fragile person. So he's got a lot of force going with that dive. So Jim, your shoulder hit the ground. You must have heard or felt something when your shoulder hit the ground.
Immediately, it wasn't a popping sound, but immediately you just felt it. It just like crumpled. It just collapsed.
When you got up, when was the first time you saw your shoulder? And can you describe how your shoulder looked?
Yeah, well, I knew even on the ground. I knew instantly. My shoulder felt like it was under my arm, and I knew right away I'd done something really bad.
All right.
And got up, and it was pretty awful. But we wrapped it up in my T-shirt.
Okay.
And made my way home.
You just didn't go home, right? With the shoulder like that. You must have went to the emergency room.
Yeah, well, first I went home and told my fiance that we've got to head to the emergency room. So it's Friday night, and we head down to the emergency room, and I naturally thought that they would stick it back in place. And I assumed that surgery was in order, but at least that the emergency room, would put it back in place. They do that for dislocations and broken arms and legs. They set it and send you on your way.
Yeah.
They took x-rays, and they basically said, we don't have an orthopedic on duty, and you're going to have to come back. You're going to have to call Monday for an appointment and put it in a sling and sent me on my way. And I'm going, wait a minute, it's Friday night. I'm thinking, I'm going to be like this all weekend?
Yeah. Yeah.
and just and then only to make a phone call to try to set something up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're not doing
basically,
anything for me.
that was it.
Okay.
So I went home.
All right. Tell us though, because you do it so well. Describe how your shoulder looked for the listening audience. I mean, and your shoulder's
Yeah.
perfectly now. So
Yeah.
describe how it was for the viewing audience too.
Right. Well, I guess they call it a third degree separation, and I may swing around perhaps. And so the whole shoulder came off the collarbone. So the collarbone was up here where it's supposed to be, but all of this was down here, and the whole pectoral had rotated, was under my armpit. So it was like, it was twisted around like this, but this was down here. So the arm was in this funny rotated position, and the muscle was under here.
Because all the muscles were pulling on it, and the bones weren't attached to anything.
And the collarbone looked like it was sticking up. Of course, it wasn't. It was where it was supposed to be.
But it was sticking up because it wasn't attached.
Because everything out, yeah.
It wasn't attached to your scapula.
So it was like a cliff. You got to the collarbone, and then it just steeply just dropped off. It was literally like my shoulder disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I got home and I looked in the mirror, and I was just shocked. You know, and I didn't really feel much pain. I mean, I tell this story, and people think it's kind of gruesome or must have hurt a lot. It really didn't. I guess there's not a lot of nerves in those areas. It really didn't hurt, or maybe it was the shock of, you know, having my shoulder just disappear like that.
Oh yeah.
Overcome any pain I was having, but it was really hard to believe.
I'm sure. I mean, 1 second, you're Jim, football player.
I got my big
broad
shoulders.
shoulders. And then the next,
One's
your
missing.
arm is dangling down, basically.
Dangling down, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
and
scratching my ankles without bending over.
Basically, yeah, with at least your knees, right? Because it was just hanging down there. And your collarbone was sticking out up because it wasn't attached to your scapula and upper arm anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't like the shoulder was lower. It was like it was gone.
Yeah. For those of you in the listening audience, if you can just feel below your throat, there's a bone there called the sternum. And if you go off to the left, you're going to follow that bone. That bone is the collarbone or the clavicle. Follow that all the way out to that big bump. That bump is where the collarbone attaches to the back part of the scapula. And that was torn away. And that's why your collarbone was sticking up almost like a flagpole. And Jim, what happened before we go to what happened when you saw your first orthopedic specialist, let's have a look at the x-ray. So Jim brought in his x-ray. He still has it after 18 years.
18 years, yeah.
So I know you guys won't be able to see it very well, but we'll get a picture for you on Olelo. But for everybody else, you're just going to have to take our word for it. The dislocation was pretty bad. So, Jim,
you can see the staples in the other shoulder in that, too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Jim actually suffered a third-degree separation. Basically, he tore all the ligaments in the shoulder. Basically, he tore the ligaments in the acromioclavicular joint. That's why the collarbone was sticking up in the air. And the coracohumeral ligament, as well as the glenohumeral ligament. So obviously, when you rip all the ligaments in that shoulder, it's a pretty devastating injury, and that's why it looks so gruesome. Did it look gruesome to you?
Very much so.
What about
it was
to your
really,
fiance? I mean, was that pretty nasty to look at?
She's not really not known to be quiet, but she was quiet. So when she's quiet, you know there's a problem.
She was speechless.
we were all pretty much speechless. I was. It was devastating.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, big time football player, known for broad shoulders, tough guy, and now your shoulder is gone.
And I'm an architect, and I'm right-handed, and so I draw. And I remember thinking that, well, gosh, at least I didn't do it to my right hand.
Yeah.
Put me out of action for a while.
All right. So Jim, tell us what happened when you went to see your first orthopedic specialist, and what kind of background did that?
Right. So I got the name of the group that was supposedly the top group in Honolulu, and they handled UH athletics at the time. I don't know if they still do. And the top doctor in that group had like a 3-month waiting list, and so I got one of the other doctors, and this was within a couple of days. So I called in Monday to get an appointment, and I guess within a couple of days I went in to see this doctor. And as soon as I walked in the room, he looked at me in the shoulder, and he said, "Wow, your shoulder's screwed." He actually said that.
He said that. All right. Well, he's honest.
He's honest, and it's like, yeah, thanks. And he said that basically there was nothing you could do with the shoulder. I naturally thought, like with all the knee surgery and ligament repair you hear about, orthoscopic surgeries and whatever, they're going to stitch something up or staple something together, like my right shoulder with the rotator cuff injury and something. I mean, there had to have been something, some kind of surgery to get it at least partially functioning again, and the least of which to pull the whole arm and shoulder and the pectoral out from under my armpit, at least do that as a starter. He said, no, there's nothing you can do. And he actually said, you can take that sling off that the emergency room had given me, because basically it's not going to help you. And I'm just staring at him like, I'm not the brightest person in the world, but I'm like, this just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And their instincts are telling me, I just,
there's got to be something.
Disbelief in my eyes. So he's looking at me, and he's looking at the chart, and he looks at me, and he goes, I see you're an architect. If you don't like the aesthetics of it, and he's pointing at my collarbone, he says, if you don't like the aesthetics of it, and he goes like this, he goes, I'll lop it off and throw it in the bucket.
Did he say that?
Exactly.
Exactly that?
I'll never forget those words. And now, if I was staring at him in disbelief before, now I'm like wide-eyed. And what?
Yeah.
So he repeated it. He says, I'll lop it off and throw it in the bucket. Just take that collarbone.
Yeah, so it'll look a little better.
Look like it's
sticking out. Yeah.
And so I said, well, thank you very much. I think I'll get another opinion. And that was, no more than, I call it the 90-second meeting, and it cost $90. So got a bill for $90.
Yeah, for a 90-second talk.
A 90-second talk. Of
And
course, insurance covers that silly conversation. And
yeah, but he didn't offer you any help or hope.
Absolutely no hope. He even told me to take the sling off.
Yeah, just let it heal that way. Yeah. How'd you feel after that conversation?
Yeah, probably more devastated from when the injury first happened.
Oh, really?
Because now it's been some 4 days or whatever,
Yeah.
and I see what's supposedly the top practice on the island, and they're telling me there's nothing you can do for that shoulder.
Yeah. He explained why there's nothing they could do for that shoulder.
No, he said the shoulder is much more complicated than a knee, and because you hear about the ligament repair on knee injuries,
ACL
all the time.
repairs, yeah.
And he says, no, the shoulder is much more complicated.
Yeah,
didn't recommend it.
Yeah, with the knee, there's only 2 bones that you're working with. With the shoulder, there's 3 bones, and your shoulder does more than just bend in one direction, right? Full range of motion with your shoulder, so a lot more complex to heal. And at that time, I'm not sure if they still don't have any kind of surgery for a shoulder injury like that, but may not, because not too many people would walk in with an injury like that, right? Maybe maybe 2 or 4 a year in a state. Not many physicians will take the time to develop a technique to fix those kinds of things. So Jim, I think probably when you first injured it, you were thinking, orthopedic surgeons can fix my shoulder. But then you find out that that first physician said there was nothing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, having spent a career in sports since grade school, I'd had my appointment or two with orthopedics over the years, ankles and knees. I never had knee surgeries, but I mean, you get dinged up, and you got to see these guys every now and then to make sure you're okay. And then of course the orthopedic that stapled up the rotator cuff injury. So I naturally thought, my mom was a career RN, and so seeing doctors and modern medicine, full belief and trust in what they do or are supposed to do. And so I had complete faith that an orthopedic was going to fix this somehow, or at least partially fix it somehow.
Yeah. All right, Jim. So you got some bad news after the first orthopedic surgeon, but you didn't give up hope. You scheduled another visit for second opinion.
I kept the sling on. Something in the back of my head said, I think I'll keep it on.
Okay.
So I found another orthopedic to see, and of course that took a few more days to set up, and I see this one, and that doctor was not much better. That doctor also said there's no surgery that he would recommend doing. It's basically messed up. He didn't say it was screwed like the other guy, but he said it was messed up, and he actually said keep the sling on. So he was slightly better.
Yeah.
Because he said the ligaments are fibrous, so they pull apart. They don't shear so much that they just pull apart. And so by keeping the sling on, you'll keep them from pulling apart further. All right. And so if you believe that, I mean, would you not then believe maybe pushing them back together and letting it heal up, there might work, And
Yeah.
it's like, no, there's you're not going to be able to put it back and have it stay. So he didn't recommend putting it back either.
Mm.
And it just looked so ugly. I mean, it wasn't just that it was out of place, it just looked horribly.
It was deformed.
Underneath, deformed. This muscle was under my armpit.
Yeah.
And he said, no, keep the sling on and come back and see me in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was it.
Let's see what kind of healing can take place.
Just come back in 2 weeks. I mean, don't do anything.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. And for this
You'd
advice,
think they'd at least recommend some drugs or something to help. I don't know.
All right.
But no, nothing. Just keep the sling on. Come back in 2 weeks.
Man, Jim, you had bad news from two specialists in bones and joints. What were you thinking at that time? What were you feeling after they told you there's nothing that can be done to put your shoulder back together?
I definitely still in denial. Shock. I don't know. Denial. I just couldn't believe it. And at that point, I thought that it would never be the same. I was still hoping, it still didn't make sense that someone wouldn't try to put it back into place. But would it ever function right again?
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely starting to settle in, and that serious doubts that it'd ever be normal again.
Yeah.
But it did seem really strange that no one was making any attempt to at least put it back or close to where it was,
Mm-hmm.
and let it just heal in that location. So my brother heard about you, and he said, why don't you talk to this guy, and one of his specialties is sports injuries, and I said, I'll try anything at this point,
I'll see the naturopath. I'm desperate.
Anything, and because by now about 2 weeks had passed between the injury and the first appointment, and then the second appointment, and then getting a hold of you and getting an appointment. So my first visit to you was about 2 weeks into this injury.
You had a little bit of time to think about it. I mean, what were you thinking or feeling when you came in to see me, or before you came in to see me?
Expectation wise,
yeah.
I don't know. I had hoped. I would hope that you were gonna suggest to
put it back
into
there.
place.
Yeah,
Whether it was ever going to be fixed or not, I don't know. But at least put it back up there and go from there.
All right. So after you came in to see me on the first visit, explain, what happened at that first visit.
What you did, yeah. The first visit was the wildest one, and one of the first things you said to me says, "Wow, let's get that shoulder back up there." That was one of the first words out of your mouth. You came into the room and you said, "Wow, let's get that shoulder back." And I just looked at it as now someone's making sense. And so you had me lay down on the bed, and you were pulling on the arm out and bracing my body back on the bed with your foot. So you had one foot up here
under the armpit,
under the armpit, while you pulled this arm out and rotated it up and up
back
at the
out.
Same time. It was like, okay, whatever, just get it over quick.
Whatever it takes. It's like guerrilla medicine. But that's how you have to reposition dislocated shoulders in real medicine. But we had to literally lift your upper arm back up and out, back into place. And how did it look once we was done with that maneuver?
Well, instantly better. I mean, the muscle came, the pectoral came up around, and I mean, at least it looked like a shoulder. Of course, it was still out of position, but you could see the shoulder again.
The form of it.
That was the form of it.
Yeah,
so that was a big start right there, and then you started this routine that you did for the next 2 weeks, and for like 3 times a week for 2
Actually,
weeks.
it's probably the next 10 weeks, I think,
well,
or 8 weeks that we were doing.
10 weeks of treatment, but the first 2 were the most intense.
Yeah.
Where you went through this routine where you would push down on the collarbone
that was sticking up
at the same time, push up on the elbow.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had one arm and hand on the collarbone and the other down below, and you just hold it tight for, I forget, like 60 seconds at a time.
As long as I could.
And beads of sweat, just beads of sweat forming on your forehead, and I got, wow, he's really putting his heart and soul into it. You really cared. Someone was really doing something about this. And you would just kind of press it all back into place, and then you would rest, and then you would do it again, and rest and do it again, and we'd look at it each time in the mirror when I would come back. Each day we came to visit you, and we could see the progress. It was slowly coming back into its normal position.
Because that first visit that you had come in after we put it back into place. By rotating your arm and shoulder back up, it was maybe holding about 70% of what it normally would look like. Yeah. So, but we want it to heal as well as possible. So, to try to get it back to 100% square like Jim's shoulder is now, we had to squeeze and push all 3 bones closer and closer together every time Jim came in. 3 times a week. So as every day went by, the shoulder started to look a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better every time. But that's just part of the problem with a shoulder injury. Because one problem is we have to get it back into place. The second part is trying to get it back into 100%, or let's say at least like 90% back to normal form and function. But the other part is we got to try to keep it in place when Jim's not at my office, right?
Right.
So we fashioned something for you to have all that stay together while you went home.
Right. You not only had a new sling, we discarded the old sling, but you said the same thing. You said, these things are fibrous, they pull apart, so the idea is to let's jam them up as best we can, and we had to kind of break 2 weeks of healing that had taken place, so we had to undo that and try to shove everything up there as best we could, and then completely immobilize it, because any wiggling and movement just keeps re-breaking it. So so you were quite the opposite of the first orthopedic. You said, take the sling off, there's nothing you could do. You not only had a sling on me, but you had this back brace on me that really kept it from moving. So I was like this the whole time for 10 weeks. It was pretty much 24 hours a day, slept with it and everything. And that was the hardest part, was wearing that brace.
The brace. We had to cinch it up pretty tight because we couldn't have it on loose, because the whole idea is to keep all three bones as close together as possible. So every time Jim came in, we'd have to cinch it up tighter and tighter and tighter. So it's like this vice grip on the shoulder, back, and neck.
I can feel it on my neck in particular, upper back and neck, and everything was a bit stiff.
Yeah, I'm sure. I couldn't have been
Good
comfortable.
news, I couldn't feel anything in my shoulder. All the pain was in my neck and
back. Yeah, I couldn't have been comfortable.
See,
and Jim, you had to wear it basically 24 hours, right? That was my orders.
Yeah, I think I maybe took it off for showering, and I mean,
you had to wear it to sleep.
Wear it to sleep. It was very uncomfortable laying like that all the time, and my wife had to dress me and tie my shoes, and it was quite a routine for 10 weeks.
It was a routine, I tell you. But Jim, going through that process of squeezing your shoulder and clavicle together in your upper arm, did that cause you any pain, going through that routine at the office?
It didn't. It really didn't. Or maybe I was just, feeling so good about it all.
Yeah.
I didn't care what it felt
like. You just wanted to get well.
Yeah, watching you looked like you were going through the pain, because you were really putting all your muscle into it.
I mean, it was literally brute force to. I had to give it all I had to help Jim heal his shoulder back together, and you can see at home on TV how his shoulder looks. I mean, perfectly square now, but I really wanted you to get well, Jim. we gave it our all for a good 8-10 weeks, I guess, right? Jim, after just 1 week, how much better did your shoulder look?
I think we were about 80% at that time, and I think you told me that we would probably get to maybe 75% of where it was, and that sounded just great at the time, given what the first 2 weeks were like, and I didn't think that it was going to function normal. Right now, we were just trying to get it back up there.
To look nice.
To look nice, at least look normal. Now, whether it was going to function normally or in long term, without some kind of surgery or something, another story. But that was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let's just try to get the shoulder up there.
Right.
And the thought of getting it up to 75% of where it was sounding pretty good at the time.
Yeah, because if your hands are by your knees, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure, right? You're just hoping that it's kind of close to your original location of the shoulder. But how were you feeling at that time, Jim? I mean, your shoulder after 1 week was about 80% better, or looked at least
Yeah.
80% better. What were you thinking at that time?
Well, we had made great progress. So actually, I was enjoyed seeing you, you know,
Mm.
and the brace was a constant kind of nuisance and all, but the visits to you and the working on it and all was actually a joy because I knew it was getting better and it was. I mean, we'd look at the mirror each time, and I think it was at that 2 week period where we got it to about 95% to normal.
Yeah, back in position. So it
Yeah.
was looking pretty much normal at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And today, I mean, even today, I was looking at it in the mirror again, and it honestly looks closer to 100%. I think at the time when it was at 95%, the the muscles hadn't come back yet.
They had atrophied a little
And
bit.
so now I've had years, and I don't really work out anymore on a regular basis, like I should. But I just over the years of normal activity, looking at it in the mirror today, it was you really you'd have to look to notice that the collarbone is just slightly higher than the other collarbone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's part of it, right? Because when we were done, we thought it was about 90% healed because it looked about 90% back to normal. But because Jim couldn't use his left arm for anything for 8-10 weeks, the muscles had atrophied, so the muscles being smaller, it looked like that gap was a little bit bigger than it really was.
Right.
All right, Jim. So the physical work that we did on your shoulder was just part of what we did to help you get well.
Right.
And the brace as well. So that was the second part that we did to keep your shoulder in place, or the bones in place, so it had a better chance to heal that way. But there were a few other things that we did when you came to the office to help your shoulder heal well.
Right. And this is the other a great thing with which you do is bringing in the healing techniques from ancient world, natural remedies to modern technology with ultrasound. So you had me taking something that was a bunch of Chinese herbs and shark cartilage and whatever kind of thing, and I was like, I'll take anything. At this point, anything, I had complete trust in you, and anything you told me to do or to take, I was more than happy to try it. And then it was the ultrasound treatment that you did, the ball and the metal,
Mm-hmm.
and which is all the normal routine with sports injuries today.
Right.
That helps stimulate, I guess, the growth, the healing process.
Healing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
All right. And we did one more thing to help your shoulder. The interferential therapy with the electrodes.
Right. And that was always a little fun. And because the muscles would atrophy, and taking the brace off for a while was always a relief. And then setting up all those electrodes all over my back and shoulder and neck, and that would pulsate for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always a little fun. I have kind of a funny story I've never told you.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
You want?
As long,
You're probably not going to want to hear this.
Oh.
Don't try this at home.
Okay.
Don't try this in your doctor's office. But it was somewhere like in the 10th week. We'd been a normal routine for us for a long time, right? And things were winding down, and it was healed, and came into the appointment, and you hooked me up on that, and you turned the dial on, and then a call came in, and you said, I'll be back in a couple minutes, and you trusted me, and because I was a regular patient at this point, so you foolishly trusted to leave me in the office
right.
with the equipment
All right.
by myself. And I was looking at that dial and I was going, I wonder if I could take it a little stronger. So I reached over and I cranked it up a little more and I could feel it just a little more, and I thought, well, that's okay.
I can
What
take
is it?
more.
I can crank it a little more. I cranked it a little more, and all of a sudden, I'm twitching, and I thought, uh-oh.
Too much.
I can't grab the dial to turn it back.
Yeah.
And so I'm eventually going to reach out and turn it back down and go, that wasn't too bright. I never told Jason that story.
I'm glad you didn't hurt yourself though. But interferential is an electrical stimulation machine. It's a more sophisticated machine than like the TENS unit. So it sends electricity into the nerves of the muscles to make the muscles contract and relax. So when Jim was twitching, that's how it makes the muscles respond. So if it's on too high, the muscles will contract and you're going to twitch and spasm so much that you have no control.
That you're frozen.
Yeah. So that's why Jim couldn't reach the dials anymore. The supplements we gave Jim was mainly to stimulate and encourage the muscles and the ligaments to heal and decrease inflammation. Jim, tell us what happened to your shoulder after 10 weeks of the naturopathic medicine treatment.
Well, it was, the most amazing part of that was that you had told me from day one, I remember, that you said, the body will heal itself. And it was like, yeah, right. It's like,
how can it heal that?
Yeah. The body, because I know that you get a cold and fevers, and the body does heal itself a large degree, but
the minor things,
injuries, right? With structural injuries, things like this that pull apart. I guess broken bones, they do heal at any age. I guess you can break a bone and it heals itself. So why not the ligaments and these things? And so that didn't really register with me. And I knew you were going to help this shoulder, but would it really heal itself?
Mm-hmm. You had a hard time believing that.
Yeah.
Meaning,
I was fine that it was just getting better, but was it really going to heal itself?
And what you mean by that is, it's looking normal now, right? But was it going to hold when you did heavier work, carrying something with the shoulder just collapse again?
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, and that's, understandable to have questions about that, because I guess, for you and for many other people, we're cruising down uncharted territory, right? Is the shoulder and the ligaments really going to heal well, or well enough for you to function normally?
Right. And when after the 10 weeks, and we took the brace off, and I didn't try to do too much with it. What was really interesting, I had full motion without pain, right away. Right away, full motion, no pain whatsoever, and that really surprised me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really test it. I didn't try lifting weights or running around. I didn't do much of any of that for a while. And a week after the brace came off was my wedding.
You made it.
So my wife made me retire from Ultimate. She
Might
said,
have been
no more Ultimate.
A wise choice, by the
way. And so it was kind of funny. I mean, by the time we got to the wedding, it just all looked normal again, although I wasn't really using my left arm too much, so I didn't really get the carrier under the threshold. I wasn't going to test it too much at that point in time.
All right. But at least you look good in your tux on your wedding day.
I looked good in the tux. All the friends and family flew into town. No one knew the difference.
Jim, how, let's say a few months after we were done, any problems with the shoulder? How was the function of it?
Right, none whatsoever.
No pain?
No pain, no loss of strength, and you know when I lift weights or I go through periods of lifting and not lifting, and over the years it kind of comes and goes, and when I find that I go back to lifting, that my right shoulder gets a lot weaker than the left. It always did, before the left was injured, is ever since high school, when I had the surgery
on your
the
right shoulder,
is that it always got weaker a lot faster than the left shoulder, and so and that's still to this day. And so when I work out, I feel nothing with the left shoulder. It feels completely normal. Absolutely normal.
No pain, no weakness, full range of motion
Full
in your
range,
left shoulder.
like it never happened.
Like it never happened?
Like it never happened. Well, and, yeah. I mean, and you think with an injury like that, the old stories about the weather changes and the knee aches and the whatever, and the right shoulder, it does. There's always the little reminders there, the creaking. There's always those reminders when you have an injury like that, and it just absolutely nothing.
Amazing the ability of your body to heal itself perfectly.
Amazing. Yeah.
We didn't get into way too much of your body's healing. Jim, the second week into our treatment, you had a follow-up visit with your second orthopedic surgeon, right. The physician who told you to keep the sling on.
Right.
And you went ahead and...
I kept that appointment. Soon after I met with him the first time, I found you, and so we were almost 2 weeks into our treatment, and it was those first 2 weeks where we made most of the progress. So by the time I went back to see him, the shoulder is pretty much up where it's supposed to. I'm all braced up, with your sling and your brace, and so I'm all kind of stiff like this anyway. And he walks in the room, and he just instantly lit up. His face lit up. He had a smile on his face. He says, "Wow, you're really doing good. You're healing really good." And I'm going, "Yeah, I know." Yeah, I said, "You know how?" And he's like, "No, how?" And I told him about you, and he instantly, the smile went away, and he kind of looked down at his chart and grumbled something. And,
yeah.
And I said, I just wanted to let you know,
that there was a way.
That there is a way.
Yeah.
And that the orthopedist couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
He can heal this stuff.
He probably grumbled something about naturopathic physicians known.
Something.
They don't know what,
I didn't.
They don't know what they're doing.
Couldn't make out what he grumbled, but he made an excuse to say goodbye and leave, and that was it. And I said, "Thank you very much, and I want my X-ray." And
yeah. Give me that X-ray.
I want that X-ray.
Yeah, proof. Man, Jim, amazing story. So, is there anything you would like to say to anyone out there who is facing, similar circumstances and insurmountable, going up against insurmountable odds? Because the experts may be telling them the same thing. There's nothing that can be done.
Right. Don't give up on your body, and listen to your instincts. We're not trained doctors and this and that, but I think everyone's natural instincts kind of tell you that something's right or wrong, something doesn't make sense like that. And so, don't take no for an answer. And I went to a third. They say, "Oh, get that second opinion." Well, I went to a third opinion. Just don't give up. Don't give up on your body. It's amazing.
It's amazing what it can do. You have anything to say about the incredible healing ability of the human body?
Just thanks to you, Jason.
I didn't let you give up on it.
No, it nothing short of a miracle. It wasn't just getting the shoulder back up, but that it actually functioned
100%.
normal without having to stitch it, staple it, pin it, screw it together, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that after all these years, that it's completely normal.
Awesome. Jim, I want to mention one more thing. One of our regular listeners of the radio program was so impressed with your story that you shared with us back in 2004 that she wanted to pay for and has paid for your program tonight. Thank you, Lana. All right. Jim, sorry to say our time is up. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible story with us on Island Wellness. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in and joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the program and learned something of value. Please join me next week. My patient Eric is joining us to share his story of how his body healed his dislocated clavicle all by itself perfectly. Thank you for watching Island Wellness. I'm Dr. Jason Uchida. God bless you. I look forward to being with you here again next week on Island Wellness.